Have you ever gotten injured and went to the doctors and they just tell you, oh, just give it a rest for 2 weeks. If it still hurts, then come back. And now you're just sitting here simply spiraling because you're an athlete and now you have to take time off from doing what you love to do the most. And now you're not just physically hurting, but also mentally depressed. Hello, friends of the internet. Sports injuries, literally an athlete's worst nightmare. As a competitive figure skater and an ex-competitive volleyball player, I have gotten injured so many different times at different levels of severity throughout the course of my career and my life. Unfortunately, I am actually actively dealing with another injury as a recent myself right now. I wish I knew the things that I'm about to tell you right now. Because back then, if I didn't ignore certain things, I would have recovered much faster and also not be sitting here with chronic pain. So the first part of the video, we're going to talk about how to get you back physically 100% as fast as possible. And the second part is actually about how to manage your injury emotionally and mentally. And that is the part that nobody tells you about, but we're going to talk about it today. Disclaimer, I am not a medical or mental health professional. This is just my experience from a competitive athlete who has gotten injured countless times and how I was able to recover fast. And mistake number one is thinking your injury is minor and not getting it checked out. I cannot tell you guys how many times I've injured myself and I just went, oh, maybe I'll feel better after I just give it a rest for a couple of days or a week. Or, oh, if it still hurts after 2 weeks, then I'll make a doctor's appointment. Or there's also some people who are just like, I don't trust doctors, I don't trust the American healthcare system or whatever healthcare system you're in. And trust me, I am the biggest skeptic of the healthcare system here. And I'll talk more about that later. And I don't ever trust my doctors completely 100%, but here's why it's still important to get your injury checked out no matter the severity. One, timing is key when it comes to injury recovery and getting yourself back up to 100% as fast as possible. Sometimes the couple of days right after the onset of your injury is the most critical in making sure you take the right steps in order to get yourself to recover fast. Depending on the severity of your injury, the immediate steps you want to take after the onset of your injury may look very different. And even if you don't trust your doctors, the way the system is set up is that your doctor can still help you get other help that you actually need, such as getting a referral or a prescription to go see a physical therapist and have it covered by your insurance. It's always also good to go in and do certain scans, whether that's an x-ray or an MRI down the line, to make sure that nothing is severely wrong. I'll touch upon this a little bit more in the mental aspect of everything as well, but especially after you just get injured, you get really tense thinking that you can't move anything at all. And sometimes just from a mental sanity perspective, getting a third-party professional opinion helps me relieve my own anxiety and kind of gives me a better understanding of what I injured and how severe it is. Also, making a point early right after you get injured is so important, especially if you live in a big city like me. Getting appointments sometimes are so freaking hard. So don't wait until you wait that 1 week or 2 weeks and things still hurt to make an appointment, because very likely if you try to make an appointment, you can't even get an appointment in with like a sports medicine practitioner 1 week or 2 weeks down the line. Even if you feel like you maybe potentially don't need it, make that appointment right away so you have the optionality to use it if you do need it. And the second mistake that I see a lot of people make, and I made myself as well, is not advocating for your own health in the healthcare system. What I have learned, unfortunately, over time is that if you don't ask for something, you won't get it, even if it is your right as a patient. What I've seen is that unfortunately many doctors just do the bare minimum. If they can get away with not giving you something, not doing something extra, they won't do it. And of course, this doesn't apply to all doctors. A lot of them do actually care about your well-being, but a lot of them actually don't, and that's the unfortunate part. So my advice here is, one, always request copies of your scans, whether it's an x-ray or MRI, both digitally and on a CD. And I know you're looking at me like, oh my god, CDs are so old school, but it's literally what the whole healthcare system uses here in the US. The reason why I asked for that is, one, it's not just good documentation for you in case you get re-injured in the future or deal with a different injury and they want to see kind of your injury history, you have that on hand. And the second thing is it allows you to get a second opinion really quickly. So sometimes if you go to a doctor, they can't really diagnose you, they're not doing, the right things for you, you just don't mesh with that doctor, they're not helping you, you can go see a different doctor in most cases, depending on your health insurance. And in those cases, instead of having to have your old doctor potentially transfer an x-ray file over, and they use different systems and it's really complicated, or you have to do an x-ray all over again and pay for it all over again, you have that CD and that hard copy that you can just give to your new provider and say, hey, I already got this x-ray done, can you look at it and give me a second opinion? That really speeds up the process in getting you the help that you need fast and enables you to really quickly get a second opinion on your own health. And the second thing here is always request to get a prescription or a referral for a physical therapist if you go see your doctor or a sports medicine practitioner. I'm a huge advocate that if you get injured at any level of severity, you should go to physical therapy to heal your body properly, because as an athlete, your body is so important and you just can't afford to screw anything up. As of recent, I went to a new sports medicine doctor because my insurance got changed, and he literally did not even prescribe physical therapy to me. And I've literally been through this process so many times, so I know. He was basically like, oh, you know, you can do some exercises and do some stretches, and it's like very vague. And I'm like, you know, what kind of exercises and stretches you want me to do? And then I was like, can you give me a referral to PT? And he's like, yeah, I can write you a referral to PT. They can show you what exercises and stretches you need to do. If I wasn't aware that a prescription to a PT is something that I could get and ask for, this doctor just wouldn't have given it to me, and I wouldn't be able to go to PT. And I would just say, even if you feel like maybe you don't need to go to physical therapy, get that prescription, because now you have the flexibility to go to a PT if you do want to. A lot of this is all about getting the power in your own hands so you have ownership and control over your health rather than someone else. And do know that depending on your insurance, you can oftentimes request a specific PT based on your research, as long as they're like covered by your insurance or in network. If you go into an appointment without any idea of who you want to get referred to, the physician will usually just pick whoever they know, whoever's close by, and just kind of slap you with a random physical therapist. I would recommend do your research ahead of time, have a PT in mind that you want to get referred to, and also look at their backgrounds. For athletes, try to look for someone who understands your sport. A lot of physical therapists have a certain set of sports background or a particular set of athletes that they treat. Try to make sure you can match those up. As a figure skater, I find that is incredibly hard to find someone who has a good knowledge and understanding of figure skating. So I typically try to look for physical therapists who have a background in either dance or gymnastics. So at least kind of some of these smaller muscles in our hips and whatnot that we use that are very specific, they have a better understanding of how we use and move those muscles. Don't be afraid to get a second opinion, especially if your insurance covers it. It's easy to fall into sunk cost fallacy of like, oh, you know, I already went to the doctors, I already spent money to get this person's opinion, even though I'm just not sure if they're doing the right thing for my health. Get a second opinion, see what someone else says. With more information, you have more control over how to take care of your own health. So definitely don't be afraid to do that. And another thing here is make sure you educate yourself and don't just take the doctor's word for any procedure. With a lot of times when they recommend certain things, there are also risks and downsides. I've been offered injections so many times. Steroid injections, like cortisol injections, all of those things have negative side effects on your body, and they don't technically actually heal your injury. That's the biggest misconception that oftentimes people have is, oh, my doctor's gonna recommend a procedure, it must fix me in some way. But no, not really. It's really to just help go in there and reduce the pain and reduce the inflammation, but it's not actually going to properly heal your muscle back up. For the most part, I feel like doctors are getting better and better at trying to recommend the right procedures for you. However, there's still a certain set of doctors, and I've worked with some of those before, who do just want to make more money off of you and try to push all these procedures and injections on you, even if you don't necessarily need it. So make sure you educate yourself and stay informed, and never say yes to a procedure immediately. Always take that information back, ask them what they plan on doing for you, go back and do your own research on it. And the last thing is make sure they understand your sport and what you do, because especially for me, when I figure skate, like nobody really understands like what we do, because it is so specific. It's not as common. Sometimes what helps me is I would even show videos or pictures of whatever I did that caused my injury and show them so the doctors have a visual of, oh, this is what you did to get this injury. And sometimes that kind of helps fill the gaps if someone's not very familiar with your sport. Also, randomly popping in as a quick mid-video reminder, if you feel like this video has been helping you thus far, please subscribe below. It will take you 1 second and it will really help support my channel so I can make more videos like this. You can also find me on Instagram, where I also post bits of my sports and injury journeys. All right, what not to do number 3. Getting injured does not necessarily mean you shouldn't move at all. This, of course, depends on severity. Misconception that a lot of people have is as soon as they strain something, pull something, they think they just need to not move for a week and that would heal everything, do its job, and you'll be back to normal in like a snap of a finger. That is not true. Especially after more minor injuries, after a day or two where you feel like your body feels ready, you should actually introduce light movement and stretching back into your routine. As your body is healing and forming scar tissue, you want to make sure that you kind of train the muscles to heal in a way that will actually lend itself to its proper function, especially in the way that muscle functions for your sport. You want to like lightly nudge it and move it in the right motions that typically you will need to do for daily movement and your sport, because we don't just spend our days as stiff as a board. We actually have to walk, we have to run, we have to do things for our sport. And if you don't start introducing those motions in, then the scar tissues kind of don't get that information that that's how they should form, and they form really, really stiff, as rigid as a board. Once it heals, you're going to be like, why am I so stiff and why do I have chronic pain now? Which is why it is so important to make sure that you still have movement, but in the right way. And working with a physical therapist can help determine what you can and should do versus what you shouldn't do. And this is so critical for two reasons. One, it is super easy to get re-injured if your body doesn't heal back properly. If your muscle is now healed and it's stiff as a board, once you start trying anything within your sport that requires your muscle to be more stretchy and elastic, it's automatically going to be like, what are you doing to me? It's going to get re-injured easily. And the second thing is pain management. Long term, if you don't heal it properly, you will have chronic pain issues. And take this from me as someone who suffers from chronic pain. I had a really bad left hamstring injury from volleyball my freshman year of college. The healthcare system at my school was horrible. They never put me through a PT program or even recommended physical therapy to me. Now I have chronic pain on my left side. I will get a recommendation from a physical therapist of what types of movements you should introduce back to your body. I will 100% not recommend you go do this yourself. Don't just Google a YouTube video and like, I think I'm ready to, do X, Y, and Z. Recovery is a very specific thing to you as an individual that you can't really just put a blanket on it. The advice that I've gotten from my physical therapist generally, if you're trying something and it's giving you sharp pain, stop immediately. Mistake number 4, not doing physical therapy and not keeping up with the exercises that your physical therapist gives you. I cannot stress enough that physical therapy is a godsend and 100% the fastest route to get you back on track to feeling 100%. Usually when you go to PT, there's kind of like two parts of it. The first part, they actually do kind of some sort of a treatment on you, and that part is kind of more like a massage where they use certain tools or use their elbows or arms to loosen up the affected or injured muscles or area. They essentially target the right spots that you need and do tension release techniques on them to help your body loosen up and allow that area to heal faster. And when your body gets injured, especially when it's a muscle, that area really tenses up and starts like gripping almost like a defense mechanism. Obviously your body is very smart, it doesn't want to get hurt again, which is why it becomes that tight. But in order to make sure that area heals properly, you have to get someone in there to help you loosen it up. And yes, there's at-home things that you can do that I do myself too to help release certain things depending on what my injury is, but nothing works better than an actual professional who knows where the muscles are in your body. And there are certain things that are so deep inside you that you just cannot get yourself. Highly recommend making sure you get treated. And the second part of physical therapy is actually the strengthening exercises. PT sometimes can actually be a workout, and that's the misconception that a lot of people have. A lot of people are like, oh, I just go to PT and I just lay down and it's like spa time. And no, that's not really the case sometimes, because you do have to strengthen those muscles back up. So going to PT is sometimes kind of going to a workout class. So your physical therapist will usually give you a set of exercises that will probably progress in difficulty over time as you slowly heal and recover. Make sure you communicate with your PT. If your PT is asking you to try this exercise or do something and it automatically gives you sharp pain, stop doing it. Tell them it hurts you. Usually that is a good indicator for them to give you something a little bit easier and a little bit lighter, because your body is not ready for that quite yet. So don't just take your PT's word for what it is. It's kind of a collaborative process of figuring out what your body needs at every stage of your injury recovery. I cannot stress enough, whatever moves, whatever exercises, however often your PT wants you to do them and how they prescribe it to you, make sure you do your exercises. Like, I know they're incredibly boring. You lay on a mat and you do like minuscule movements, but truly you have to do them in order to strengthen that area back up for when you actually go back to your actual sports training. There's no way you can go from zero back to your sport without strengthening that muscle back up. And that is the biggest factor in making sure that that muscle is strong and does not get re-injured again. And I know it's not very fun to do, but kind of how I find motivation to go and do it and be very on top of it is I think about it as just another active step that I am taking to have ownership over speeding up my own recovery process. And I know that doing this very boring thing will get me back to doing what I love the most, which is my sport. I'll talk about this more in the mental section, but I honestly find that having a PT routine to do every day or every other day actually helps me feel better, because I feel like I'm actively doing something to help me feel better rather than just sitting there and doing nothing with the time and just dwelling upon how crappy I feel about being injured, feeling helpless about not being able to do the things that I used to be able to do. Mistake number 5 is going back to your sport too fast and too early. This is one of the hardest things to gauge and manage, because no doctor or no physical therapist has an exact idea of you have to rest for 2 weeks versus you have to rest for 4 weeks. It's like a see and go and trial and error process that you have to do slowly. And I know it sucks, but it just has to be that way. It's so easy to go back to your sport as soon as you even feel marginally better, and trust me, I am the biggest culprit of this myself. Before you introduce bits and pieces of your sport back into your routine, you want to make sure that you have done enough weeks of physical therapy and all the exercises to make sure that your body is strong enough to go back to doing pretty strenuous physical activity. And even when you are ready to go back to your sport, you have to reintroduce it in small bits and pieces. You can't just go back on day 1 and expect your body to operate the same way as if you didn't get injured. You have to, 1, both modify the frequency and the duration of your training when you first start back, and 2, you probably have to modify the type of movements or things that you incorporate into your training and slowly build that up over time over several weeks. If you go all out the first day you are back, you're bound to accidentally re-injure something and just completely stunt the timeline of your recovery. And I made this huge mistake on my hip injury about 2 years ago, where I thought I was completely fine after a month. It was still aching a little, but I was like, I can go back and skate. And as soon as I did that, I made things worse, and then I actually ended up having to take a full 8 months off. And I was out for the entire competition season that year. And if I only knew to not do that, I would have bought back 8 months of time. All right, mistake number 6. This makes me realize how many freaking mistakes I've made in the past. So hopefully you don't make the same ones. But mistake number 6 is not eating enough. A lot of times athletes make the mistake of thinking, oh, you know, I am injured, so I'm no longer training, or I'm no longer having so much physical movement in my daily life. Therefore, I should also drastically reduce the amount of food that I eat. Also, just speaking from personal experience, I do struggle also with the anxiety of gaining weight when I have an injury, because I'm just like, oh my God, I'm not able to train or work out and do all the things that I typically can do, and I'm gonna gain so much weight, and when I come back to the sport, it's gonna be awful. And you just kind of start spiraling. And this is a whole nother topic we can dive into another day. But what is important to understand is that sometimes it's actually more important to pay attention to your nutrition and what you put in your body when you are injured. You want to make sure that you're fueling your body and giving your body the right tools so that it can help you repair itself and recover the fastest. Your body needs all the right macronutrients in order to heal yourself. So please, please, please make sure you're eating enough, you're eating the right things, you're eating foods that are rich in omega-3 fatty acids and foods that have anti-inflammatory properties that can help speed up your journey to recovery. All right, now let's talk about something that is equally as important to your recovery process, and that is managing your mental health while you're going through an injury. I feel like on YouTube there's countless PT exercise videos, what you should do when you get injured, ice this, do that, but nobody ever tells you how bad and how much of a hit it is to your mental health, especially as an athlete when you get injured. There's a big void of not being able to do all the things that you're so used to being able to do. Moving our body is such a big part of our identity because that's all we do. So when that is taken away from us, it just severely has a huge impact on you. So my first practical advice here is to make sure you fill that void with something new or a new routine. Training and working out takes up a huge chunk out of our day-to-day schedule. So obviously when we don't do that anymore, there's like a huge gaping hole in just what do we do with this time. It's oftentimes when I just let myself sit there that I start spiraling and I start thinking about like, I could be at the rink right now, I could be training, but instead I'm just sitting here like wallowing in my own sadness, dwelling on things that I cannot change, which is the fact that I am injured now. So what I actually found helpful is to fill that time, and that could be, you know, trying out something new that you always wanted to try but just didn't have time to because you're training all the time. Maybe it's taking up painting or learning how to code or cooking or whatever it is. Or you can also redirect that time to spend more time with people that you know that love and support you, whether that's spending more time with your friends and family. That can also be a really, really good use of your time. Especially for me as a busy athlete, I feel like I can never get enough time to spend with my friends and family. And for me, what it has helped me is recrafting a routine of what my daily movement routine looks like. And when you're injured, that could look very differently. And just because you're injured doesn't mean you can't actively set aside a chunk of time to dedicate either to yourself or dedicating your body to moving some sort of way. For me, I feel like having a routine gives me more of a peace of mind that I'm actually doing and taking concrete steps to getting myself to feel better. When I recently got injured, obviously I was still really upset. You know, you can't ever change how shitty it feels to get injured, especially as an athlete. But what I told myself is, okay, you have to set the expectation that your daily routine is no longer gonna be wake up at 6, go do 2 hours of training, go to work, do 2 more hours of training after work. It's not gonna be like that anymore. Instead, I told myself every day I'll wake up, do 15 minutes of just walking outside, getting some sun, and for a while that's all I did. And then maybe followed by some light stretching. And when I started feeling a bit better, I started modifying my routine a bit. I'll go to the gym and just do 15 minutes of elliptical, and I'll do all of my PT exercises. I used to be in a boat of like, why should I even go to the gym to do 15 minutes of elliptical? Like, that will do nothing for me. But no, having a routine of even just doing light movement and doing what you can not just help you physically, but also help you mentally feel like you have a sense of ownership back into taking care of your own health. And the second advice is to accept things for what they are rather than dwelling on the what ifs. As athletes, it's so easy to go into that opportunity cost mindset and you start spiraling. Oh, if only I didn't do that thing that day, I would not be injured. And if I didn't get injured, I could be doing all these things right now, be playing in the national tournament, whatever it is. Thinking about all these negative things and all these negative scenarios where you could have had something is not going to change the current present situation that you are in, where you're physically, your body is just injured. We can't change these things sometimes that the universe just throws in our face. The only thing we can do is take active steps to get better from that current situation and to have a forward-thinking mindset. I think it's very, very hard to sometimes mentally reconfigure yourself to think that way, but I truly think your mindset is such an important part in the whole healing process from an injury. And the last thing I'll say will probably be obvious, but go to see a therapist. And I'm not talking about a physical therapist now, I'm talking about an actual mental health professional. Because oftentimes when you get injured, the first thing that we think about is for sure not go and see a mental health specialist or a therapist. But honestly, being able to talk to an objective third party about just all the thoughts and feelings and frustrations that you have when you do go through an injury can sometimes be just really helpful, and have someone else help you kind of understand all the different things that you're feeling. Mental well-being is in it of itself a huge factor in how you can recover faster, because when you are a happier person in general, your body also responds to healing itself better physically. And one of my favorite physical therapists that I actually worked with, who was actually my first physical therapist when I had my really big back injury when I first moved to New York. When I came in, she asked me, you know, how I was doing. I thought she was literally asking me like, oh, how's the injury feeling? Is your back still hurting? But she was like, oh, no, like, how are you doing mentally? And that was the first time that anyone has ever asked me like how I was doing mentally after an injury. And her asking me that really made me reflect and realize I was really not doing so hot. I was not doing great emotionally and mentally. So just being self-aware and prepared that injuries can have a mental health toll on you can help you be more equipped to take the right steps to make sure that your mental health also stays intact while you're on your healing journey. All right, guys, I hope truly this video was able to help you out and give you reassurance that you do have the active ability to take ownership over your health and recover fast from an injury, both mentally and physically. I certainly wish this video could have existed for me when I was going through a nightmare string of injuries when I first moved to New York, and I would not have made all the stupid mistakes that I now really regret. If you feel like this video has helped you out in any way, please like, comment, and subscribe. It would literally take you 1 second, and I would love you 3,000. Subscribing and supporting the channel really means that I can create more content and videos about being an athlete and dealing with some of the struggles that we deal with and how to best help other sports lovers and athletes alike. If you have any additional questions on injury management, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below, or honestly, if you have another topic that you would like me to cover, leave it down below, because your idea may just be the next video I make. Fun fact, this video was actually a request that was spun upon a subscriber's comment from one of my last videos, so I definitely do take your guys' opinions into account in what I make on this channel. If you're currently struggling through an injury, just know that all will be okay and all will be fine, and I wish you the best of luck and a fast recovery. Please take care of yourself both physically and mentally today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Boy, your honey sickly sweet, keeps me coming, got me weak. You could kill me, I'd still